But the things that have made the biggest impact in my life are the spiritual aspects. Basketball has not helped my marriage. Basketball didn't help me as a parent, right? And my walk with Christ has given me a marriage for 36 years. My walk with Christ is what has allowed me to parent through the difficult times and the challenging times. And I don't say any of that to rip on athletics. I think there's great value in it. I think what makes it hard in today's world is not just the time, but the environment in which we're putting our child at 5 years old. I watch basketball. The kids are playing it's basketball season now, so they decide to play basketball again, the grandkids. And, it's serious business at that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what they're learning, because nobody takes ministry that serious.
Yeah.
And we can sit and do nothing with it and be guilty of the crime of omission, or we can leverage it to make kingdom difference.
Welcome to the Troy Gramling Podcast. I am Neil Oates Jr. here with Pastor Troy Gramling, of course. And Pastor Troy, today we have some very special guests with us. As you all can see, we have Melissa Gonzalez. Would you go ahead and tell us a little bit about you, Melissa?
Sure. Thanks, Neil. So my name is Melissa. I am a native here in South Florida. I am a working mom of 4 kids. I have 3 boys and a beautiful little girl. And you're just trying to get through life.
As are all of us. And then we have Ali Hassan. Tell us a little bit about you, Ali.
Thanks, guys, first of all, for having me here. My name is Ali Hassan. I'm the general manager of Fort Lauderdale United. I'm also a Florida native, grew up here in Broward County. Went to school here from elementary all the way through college.
Okay. And so if you all are curious why we are here, why we have Ali and Melissa, Pastor Troy, we are in the middle of this thing called the World Cup.
Yes, we are.
Have you been paying attention? Have you been keeping up with the World Cup, sir?
I know who wins.
Okay.
I've been on the podcast years ago, and we had a long soccer discussion. I'm making progress.
Okay. So the reason we have Melissa and Ali here is because we want to talk about sports, right? And not only sports.
Hold on, I just got to interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't know when people are listening, but it is a big day in Miami sports, because just yesterday or the day before, we did trade for Giannis. We hate to have to give up some of our players, but I'm wearing my NBA shirt today. I know the World Cup's going on, but occasionally you have to talk about the real sports. And
I'm on.
And we did get Giannis, and so we could have better days ahead.
And so very excited. Ali even saw you on the phone ready to purchase the Giannis jersey.
That's it. I'm looking.
Breaking. And so we laugh about this, but we're going to talk about not only sports, but how does sports play a role in young adults' lives and kids' lives, maybe even in adults' lives. But how do we raise champions without losing our souls? So that's where we're going to begin. We're going to hear from someone who has played at a high level, someone who is in the leadership, a mom of athletes. So, and then of course we're going to hear from Pastor Troy. So I'm excited about this conversation. But here's where I want to begin. Oh, Pastor Troy, did you have something?
No, I just kind of offended you didn't mention anything about my athletic prowess as well. Just kind of you flows through me so quickly.
What's understood does not have to be explained, right? So for the viewers and the listeners of the Troy Gramling Podcast, we know that you were the pinnacle of athleticism.
Thank you.
Right? And so that goes without saying. So here's where I want to begin, if we can. I want to look at this idea of, and I want to begin with Melissa. We know that you have student athletes, young athletes, and you're a mom. How do you navigate this idea of encouraging your kids to be great at sports, but understanding that it is not their identity?
Correct. So it could become their identity very easily if you don't interfere. Like if you don't kind of start from the very beginning with them, telling them, hey, we're doing this for fun. We're doing it for you to kind of learn all these different aspects of life through sports, right? And for me to kind of, and I started with my oldest, I have a 19-year-old going on 20, with just, something in school related. And that kind of gives them a little bit of motivation. And it kind of, okay, I want to be a volleyball player. And then I kind of went on with baseball with my second son, and he loved it. But then it kind of also became well, that's all he wanted to do was baseball. And it's like, well, wait, yes, that's great that we have so much fun, but let's look at something else, and kind of just open up their horizons a little bit and just say, hey, this isn't all just, this is more of a hobby. And we kind of started off as a hobby, but it's not who it's going to be for, like, listen, at the end of the day, what are the chances that he is going to become a huge MLB player or something, right? So for me, it's kind of just taking it for fun, do it for fun. We're going to start this, enjoy it, have fun, but then slow it down a little bit.
Okay, now you mentioned what are the chances that he's going to become this MLB player. I want to go to Ali now, because I know from whether you're an athlete or now on the GM side for the Fort Lauderdale United, you are around these athletes who have the dreams, who have the goals, who believe that I've been working, and not only the kids, but also the parents. How do you navigate this space of encouraging athletes, but then also having realistic expectations, saying that you cannot tie your identity to this thing that you do?
Yeah, honestly, it's a hard topic, right? Because I think it's not just with children, even pro athletes today. That's their identity to them, right? And without it, they feel lost. So I think it's a challenge, just even in today's society, for the top players in the world to disconnect. And I think you see that a lot with players that retire, especially the ones that have a lot of money. They lose their money real quick. I don't have an answer for that, honestly. It's a difficult question, because myself included, I mean, I went through it where it was my whole life. From when I was 4 years old till I got injured, I honestly was so into the sport and everything about it and my commitment. And there's pros and cons to that, right? Like, if you want to play at a high level, I think you really do have to commit as much as you can. The cons are you do kind of lose yourself in that process. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that it's also about the journey. It's not just about the destination. So from the younger ages, it's really letting parents understand that it's you're almost living through your kid, but it's not about the destination. It's about the journey. Let them grow, let them learn, let them fail. And from there, that's where they're going to start to kind of really know who they are in that process, and it helps build their character as they get older. So I really just try and give that piece of advice of it's not about the destination. It's not, let the kids experience.
All right. So it's already been stated here on this episode that Pastor Troy Gramling is an athlete, right? Not former athlete, but an athlete. So I want to go to you. So we hear Pastor Troy, but you are also a basketball player, right? Someone who loved the game, someone who even loves the game now. When you hear Melissa and Ali say these things, where do you go as an athlete, a former athlete? Where do you go as a parent, grandparent? But then also, where do you go as a pastor when you hear this?
Yeah. I mean, I think, of course, I'm not anti-athletics. I played a big role in my life. But I do think that it's probably, there's two really difficult aspects to parenting, I think, in 2026. Discipline is always difficult for parents to do. And I think extracurricular, whatever it might be, whether it's painting or whether it's athletics, but especially athletics, because it's become big business. So many of youth sports now are owned, businesses have seen opportunity to make money. So they're engaged with, private teachers, all of this kind of thing. And, it's one thing to try to teach your child to make a good decision about health or partying or whatever. We're not talking about good and bad. We're talking about priorities. We're talking about time. And so parents have to navigate that path. Like, what is going to be the priority of our family? What is going to be the priority? What am I going to challenge my own children with when it comes to what they prioritize? Because that, to me, is society has made that incredibly challenging. That at every level, what's asked of even a young athlete is to totally commit to that, and for their parents to totally commit. If you're going to be on this traveling team, then we're going to practice this many days. We're going to travel 6 hours away, 3 out of 4 weekends, and we're going to do all this stuff. And if you want to be on the team, now we're going to give you a uniform, and you're going to win rings, and all those things that are happening. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, let alone once they become teenagers. So it makes it really difficult on the parent if they don't set some priorities early on and leverage it to teach priorities, something bigger than athletics. And it's like anything. It's not, the challenge is not new in the sense that, people who go to work every day, they have to decide priorities when it comes to where spiritual, especially, as a pastor, spirituality, what role is it going to play in my life and in my family's life? Because there's always going to be a reason to put God later, in the, in the catalog, as opposed to, whatever else the other thing might be. And I do think that is a huge challenge that is always been there, athletics especially, because we built all these big stadiums and with just so much money in it that drives. And now when you can make, there's money to be made with 5-year-olds and t-ball and tournaments and all those kind of things. And I'm sure the same is true in soccer and basketball. And again, athletics has a lot that it can teach. But it's not the only thing that can teach. Sometimes we act the only place you can learn team or learn competition is on an athletic field, and I don't believe that's true. But it is a great opportunity to learn discipline and priorities and all those kind of things. But I do think it's one of the number one for a Christian parent. It's one of the top stressors and challenges that if they don't figure it out, it becomes a big issue.
Okay, so I'm going to come to Melissa in a moment. I want you thinking about as a Christian parent, but I want to come to Ali. So as a believer, as a faith-filled leader, how do you manage leading your organization, leading your team, and still not forfeiting the faith side of who you are? Because I think sometimes we think that we have to decide either or. Do I be a great GM? Do I be a great leader? Or am I a great Christian? How are you navigating that space from the leadership role, Ali?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, it's just about being myself. Like, I don't change who I am around anybody. When there's challenges, when there's difficult decisions to be made, when there's great moments, it's not like you don't ride that roller coaster of like what's where your skin is telling you to do, and the good and the bad moments. So it's really about just showing, right? Because your people are also looking at you, how you're going to react to certain situations. So I think in your actions, it's really important to show the people that you're leading the right and the wrong, right? And I think sometimes it's conversations, sometimes it's praying, sometimes it's just a simple action, right? Like they see how you act in certain moments, and I think that is it's probably the strongest way to kind of get your message across to people. When they know that when they see that you're steady, your feet are on the ground, you're not reacting a certain way, it's a representation of who you are and what you believe, right? So I think that's a good way to really share, with the rest of my team what's right, what's wrong, who I am, who I believe in. And like I said, sometimes it's conversations. Like we'll bring it up, we'll talk about God in the office. It just depends. You have to know your audience too, right? Not everyone is open to having those conversations, but the ones that are, it's good, and you feel that connection with them, and then they feel a stronger bond with you, and that you guys are pulling in the same direction. So yeah, for me, that's how I do it. Good. It's really just about myself, like my persona.
Good stuff. I love that. Now, Melissa, you're probably going to get the hardest questions.
Oh,
I mean, it's only fitting, right? And that's why we brought you on here, to have some wisdom on the set. Okay, because we're going to have audience members who are listening to this podcast, and they are parents. Right. You mentioned that you started this journey with your kids for fun.
Right.
But as Pastor Troy just mentioned, at some point, it requires more of you, more of the family, more of your husband, the kids. How do you navigate that piece when Pastor Troy says that we might be traveling 3 out of 4 weekends? Christian mom, I want to be that parent. I want to have boundaries. I want to make sure that I'm doing the right thing for my family, but there's opportunity and commitments as well. How do you navigate that space?
So we've evolved with time. In the beginning, I'll be honest, when we started T-ball, my son was 4, and we were super excited. 2 days a week, we have practice, 1 game on a Saturday. Great, right? And you just saw him running around bases. It was great. Um, 5 years old, 6 years old. Okay, we went from 2 practices now to 3. So as they get older, um, practices became a little bit more involved in the weeks, a little bit longer. And then all of a sudden, it's not to the 9, 10 years old where you kind of really started to see a little bit of a transformation. And it went from what was a recreational hobby to now a little bit more of a commitment in a travel team. And now you have to kind of compete a little bit more, right? So now you're like, okay, now we're doing 3 days a week of practices and possibly a game on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But then listen, you can't just do practice. You need to better yourself individually. So now you got to do these private lessons, right? So now you're doing pitching lessons if you want your son to pitch, and now you're doing these batting lessons, privately. So it's 3 days a week of practice with the team, 2 individual plus the games on weekends. And in the beginning, it was tough. When we first started, they were telling us, hey, yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we're like, oh man, okay, let's do it. Yeah, we're super excited. We're going to do it. And I remember saying, guys, I need to go to church. Like, I want to go to church. Like, I have to. But I'm over here in Miami and my church is in Pembroke Pines. I'm like, well, we have a little bit of a gap. Guess what? In between games, I'm going to go and I'll be right back. And I would come and I'd apologize. So I'm like, hey, listen, I'm a little bit, I come in my leggings with my baseball jersey, and we're here for the moment, and we get right back down to Miami. Or I'd come in the morning right before our game. We'd come in at our, 8:30 service or 9 o'clock, whatever the time might be. Sometimes dressed up in our uniforms and head back to the field. So we did. In the beginning, we wouldn't, right? Because, oh no, we committed, we have to show up. Like, we're going to miss church. Oh my goodness. And then we kind of evolved and we're like, we had to kind of make it a priority. Hey, we're going to make it work, right? And it may not be easy for us and definitely inconvenient driving back and forth when you really want to just hang out and not have to do the distance, but you have to, right? And showing that to our team and saying, oh, where'd they go? Oh no, they went to church real quick. That kind of starts, kind of what I call, planting our little seeds every so often. Something as simple as our walk-up music. My boys have their Christian music. So everybody has their T.I. or, all these rappers, or we're here playing Forrest Frank, like, hey, what's that song? And it's our little ways of kind of showing our faith, how important it is to us. Somebody gets hurt, hey, let's do a quick prayer for him, and sometimes, hey, we know so-and-so is not feeling good. Hey, we're going to pray for you. We're praying for your son to get better. And those little things kind of go, because it's a very worldly game out there, right? And I'll be honest, when we first started, it's scary out there. I don't know if you guys ever sit in the stands, but these parents are like intense. And I'm back there, I'm just watching. I'm like, oh man, these people need Jesus, because I'm like, they're 8, they're 9. What's going on here? So we do. You have to make it an effort, but it doesn't come naturally. You have to kind of make it.
So, Pastor Troy, coming from what Melissa just said, oftentimes people will hear sports and church and they immediately, which one are you going to choose? And this is that whole Sunday struggle. At our Cooper City campus here, we have a park that is right across the street from us, and we will see the choices being made. And if we aren't careful as Christians, we could say, oh, they're going to hell. They're playing sports on Sunday instead of coming to church. But that's not your position, right? Your position is partnering with. What does it look like from the leadership side in the church? How do you approach choosing sports? Because I know priority is a big word in your vocabulary. How do we choose those priorities, and how do we lead out if we're the parent, maybe coming from the pastor side?
Yeah, well, I mean, priority. I think, again, opportunities to teach, to have real conversations with our kids about what we really value. And because there's always an external, this is what a Christian per se looks like, but what is a real Christ follower? And there's a tendency for us to underestimate what does it mean to be a believer. Just like you were talking, Melissa, there's all these nights out. Well, for Lion, who's 7, and Luna, they had to miss 2 basketball games apiece to come to only 3 nights of children's camp. Right. And so there's the church aspect, right? Commitment, priority, valuing God's house. But then there's the community. There's true engagement, right? So then it's not just about Sunday in the sense of there's this whole, how do I help my young person engage in their spiritual journey? How do I help them engage with the children's group or the youth group or the community so that they've got those strong? Because again, if they're involved in extracurriculars, you want them to be a witness, you want them to be to live out their faith. But if all their faith is where they're at on Sunday, then that's good, right? It's important. I mean, that's important. But I think that when you think about the amount of money, energy, and effort that people put into athletics, there's a lot we teach without realizing we're teaching it. And, kids grow up so much quicker than parents realize. That's one of the things. So I'm always trying to awaken parents because, especially if a parent is a Christ follower, they tend to think that their kids are in the same place that they are. Right. So they know the story of Noah's Ark and they tend to think that they're raising their kids in God's house when in reality they're not. They're coming 14, 15 times a year. That's once or twice a month. You come twice a month, that's 24 times. Right. So that means 24 times you're not coming. If you're only coming 24 times, then it's very unlikely your child's not engaged in some kind of connect group and some kind of ministry opportunity and serving in some capacity. The most they're doing is coming and sitting and listening. And the challenges that lie ahead of them. I mean, when I think about athletics, I think it taught me, I loved it, played basketball all the time, a little bit of baseball, but, it paid for my college. I got to go to Europe and play basketball. But the things that have made the biggest impact in my life are the spiritual aspects. Basketball has not helped my marriage. Basketball didn't help me as a parent, right? And that my walk with Christ has given me a marriage for 36 years. My walk with Christ is what has allowed me to parent through the difficult times and the challenging times. And I don't say any of that to rip on athletics. I think there's great value in it. I think what makes it hard in today's world is not just the time, but the environment in which we're putting our child at 5 years old. I watch basketball. The kids are playing it's basketball season now, so they decided to play basketball again, the grandkids. And, it's serious business at that. And I'm like, well, I don't know what they're learning, because nobody takes ministry that serious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And kids are smart enough to pick up on what, if you're a parent and you don't value education or, in learning, then they're not likely to learn whatever it is, let alone a spiritual. So so my, long answer to your question, apologize, but I feel like we are trying to figure out how do we partner with parents and yet challenge them that they're going to make some difficult decisions, right? Because everybody does, right? It's like, well, it's not fair to the child. They have to choose whether they're going to play whatever the athlete is or be engaged in youth group. But you're going to have that same decision as an adult.
Yeah.
The men's softball league or the working in the yard or the second job or not extra time, overtime on set, right? Our whole life is going to be a wrestling match with priorities. And so we've got what, 12, maybe 15 years, to teach them how not necessarily what to do, but how to do it and how to think. So when they do go off to college and when they do get married and all that, they can really make decisions based on what they say they value and what they prioritize, not just, again, the high point of some people's spiritual life is that they make it to church.
Yeah.
I'm glad they do. Right, because I think it is incredible. It's God's idea, not ours, right? So I think it's all throughout Scripture. Not forsake the assembling of yourselves together. When you get together on the first of the week, it's when you're supposed to bring your offering, right? All those. There's tons of scriptures about being in God's house. I think that's really important, but it is not the pinnacle of our spiritual life. It's the foundation, right? It's the beginning point, and you've got such a short period of time to teach kids how to make that a value in their life, because everything in their life is going to push against that because we have an enemy. Their job, their relationships, their friendships, their just so much of our lives is so easy to get distracted from the spiritual aspect of our lives. But, as somebody who gets to watch it and then, of course, live it in my own life, there's nothing that's had a greater impact on my life. Before I ever became a pastor, the kind of relationship Steph and I started with, And it was because of my faith. Not because I went to church. That was part of living out my faith. But it was because my faith was real. It was real when I was in college playing basketball, And so anyways, that's my little sermon. But I do think it's a great opportunity to teach something that is going to lead to success. And that is, how do I live out my values? Is there any bigger decision than how do we live out our values, and faith being one of those, but commitment in our marriage? Let's say you do make it to the pros. You know what I mean? If you haven't learned how to live out your values, well, are you going to be faithful to your spouse? There's too many opportunities.
Yeah.
Well, she yelled at you, or he yelled at you right before you left, and this other. It's just that's all out there. Even should you succeed, and NIL right. It's just so I just think it's really, really important for us as parents to realize how quickly it goes by. Because that's how it sneaks into us. Because like you say, they start with T-ball.
Right.
But before you realize it, they're 10. And by 10, they've decided if it's baseball, they're going to wear a glove, or if they're going to wear the shooting, or I don't know what they wear, shin pads, or whatever they wear in soccer, is Messi their guy, all of that. Man, you go over here to the school and you hang around a 10-year-old, and, you might have a 4-year-old and you think you got plenty of time, but by their 10, they've made a lot of decisions about their life.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go to Ali. So you've heard Melissa and Pastor Troy talk about the age, like 6 or 7, they're getting in, playing ball at a high level in terms of the parents and the coaching and engagement. We heard Melissa talk about in the stands. You have them, hey, do this, but they're 8 or 9. What do you wish parents knew about player development at an earlier age, whether it's the pressures they're putting on, the good, the bad, because you're dealing with them at an older age with Fort Lauderdale United. What do you wish the parents knew earlier about either the pressure, challenges, or the encouragement for their kids and player development early on?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. I think, honestly, kids they're gonna really go the path that they feel more so on what's around them and their peers more than they are what their parents are trying to put them in.
Hold on. That's hard for parents to hear.
It's very hard, but it's the truth. I mean, and to be honest, kids absorb more from each other every single day than they're going to absorb from anything else that we're doing. So to Pastor Troy's point, is kind of engaging them in the church community. It's more important than what the parents are just seeing. It's the people and the kids that they're actually interacting with that I think has the greatest impact, right? And I think from the sporting side of things, right, in their development, it's no different. I mean, the parents also have to understand that they can have the best coach in the world, they can have all the accolades, but at the end of the day, it's the people that are around their kids that are really going to shape them to be a good player, a good person, and ultimately who they're going to be when they grow up, right? So I think from a parenting perspective, you can't dictate what they're going to absorb, but you can put them in a place where that they're going to be around people who are going to help guide them the right way.
Good stuff.
What do you think about I don't know if it's the same in soccer, but in basketball especially, there's always a lot of comparison between AAU, the way we do it here in America, and then the way the Europeans do it more as far as academies and all that kind of thing. What have you had any? Do they do that in soccer as well? Is there a bigger difference in the way they do it in Europe as opposed to the way we develop players over here?
1,000%. I mean, like you were mentioning, it's a pay to play system here, right? So parents are investing their money, and when you invest money in something, you're more attached to it. It's opposite over there. Over there, there's teams and clubs investing in players at a very young age, and obviously there's a financial gain for them in the future if they're able to develop that player and sell them on in the future. So it's a completely different model. I mean, at the end of the day, youth sports and every sport it's a cash cow, and I think when psychologically parents feel like, hey, I'm paying $3,000, $4,000 a year for my kid to do something, they become attached to that, and that's where they kind of snag you with the commitment. And there's pros and cons to it too. Like I said, I don't think it's all negative. I do think that being in those type of environments does teach your kids a lot, right? Like I think for me personally, one of the things that I gained from it from a young age that even outside of sport, I was able to keep with me is resilience. Like there's very few things that can really shift me, and it's not just because of me. Obviously, I think my beliefs help that a lot, but also going through that process in something that I was committed in and that I was invested in helped me learn a little bit about who I was and how resilient I can be in plenty of different situations. So I think that's an important piece to the puzzle, right? It's being around the right people, but also building yourself up and getting thicker skin as a kid, so that when real life situations happen to you, you're prepared.
Yeah. So
Were you always good from a young age?
I was the best.
No, but I just wonder. Okay, the reason I ask is because
Builds self-confidence as well, right?
I feel like athletics has given me a lot of confidence,
Yeah.
but I feel it was because I succeeded.
Yeah.
So I feel like if I wouldn't have succeeded as much, I don't know that it would have had as much a positive impact on my life.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, I went through ups and downs. I mean, from being very young, when I was a little kid, I was naturally good because I was one of those kids that always had a ball at my feet at home. So I was really good in some places, and then I would, advance to the travel teams and get more competitive. And again, when resilience was kind of instilled in me, and I'm like, no, I need to be better. I need to be the best one on my team. I would push. And I think through my youth career, like I made it to the top. Kind of same situation in the college that I went to. Like I came in as a freshman and I was like, I got to start, I got to play, I got to score goals. And, I did that. And then same thing when I went pro. I mean, I was lucky enough to have a 10-year pro career, but there was so many downs in that, sorry, excuse me. There was so many downs in that process that, you have to really build that up. And that confidence, it's always there in you, because if you don't believe in yourself, the person next to you is not going to believe in you. It's just how it is. So you need to show that first, even in those moments that you're like, man, I don't know. Like you might have those doubts, but ultimately, like you need to prove to yourself first that you are as good as you think you are, for anyone else to be there. And that's where that confidence comes from, right? And that's just from practice, repetitions, and knowing that you do really. You're not like fronting, like it's real. Like you could do this, and it's just kind of putting yourself in that position constantly. But the one thing I just want to throw in there that helped me a lot in those hard situations when I played pro, we used to do Bible study in one of the teams I was in, and one of the messages that we did one time, it really stuck with me, was the audience of one, right? And I'm sure you've heard of it, but that for me was like a game changer, because I stopped trying to play for other people. I stopped trying to play for my coach. I stopped trying to play for the crowd. I stopped trying to play for my family. I was playing for God, and I would write it I would wrap my arm on my thing, AO1. Hard was, the game was getting hard. Just reminder, constant reminder. And for me, that shifted my mindset. And honestly, that was something that I appreciated that message so much, because it stuck with me. And there's a player in our team now that she writes it on her leg, AO1 before a game, and I'm like, I get it 100%. It's really cool, So yeah, there's a lot of things that come with the sports in general that you can deliver messages, right? You can share the word. And I think everyone's platform is a little bit different. And that was one for me that I thought helped me. And I'm glad that other people are doing that and using their tools to share the gospel.
Good stuff. Now, I don't want to miss an opportunity to ask a question to Melissa. Ali mentioned earlier about the influence that the kids have on each other, their teammates. What about the parents, right? Because this could be, especially as a Christian parent, this could almost feel as if you're out here in this scary place by yourself, right? You're trying to raise your kids differently. You're trying to instill different values. What would you say to that parent, that sports parent who's watching, listening to us right now, and they feel as if they are the weird parent out, the one who is walking away, or maybe they haven't gotten the confidence to leave the tournament to go to church? What do you say to them? Because they're sitting here and saying, my entire reference groups put this above everything else. What do you say to him or her today?
So, and it's easy, right? Because I remember in the beginning, when I was, talking to my husband as we got a little bit more serious into the baseball life, there's some coaches out there, and I'm not saying anybody, thankfully we haven't had, or we kind of did have an experience, but we're no longer with them. But listen, if you don't show up to practice, you're not going to play. You're going to miss a game. They're going to take you to the bottom of the lineup. So they're almost punishing our kids, whether it's a commitment to come to church or it's a birthday party or school related. So it's a fine line, So in the beginning, as we evolved, again, they had games on Sundays and we had to kind of choose and we wouldn't miss a game and so on. And now we've kind of been like, well, I don't want my son to get punished because we have what I think is good for our family and what we take as a priority, right? So we kind of had to make the decision, hey, this wasn't the right team for us. Like, if you're gonna start punishing our kid, and even though he's a great player, like it's just not for us, right? So we kind of look to, other places, other sources, and just be like, okay, kind of like-minded coaches. But you still have, 10, 12 players on a team, 10 to 12 different diversities, right? Some are atheists, some are Jewish, some are Christian, some are Catholic. You have all different sorts of dynamics. And for us, I remember in the beginning being, oh, should I put in the chat, hey, I'm praying for you, hope you feel better, prayers to your son. You didn't know how are they going to take that, right? But I've gotten to a point in my life, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it, take it, leave it, but you're going to hear it, right? So building that self-confidence in us. And same thing for my son. There's been times, hey, my son comes to me, oh, he pushed me, or he told me this, or he told me I sucked, or he said that he's glad I missed the ball, or whatever the case may be. And I'm like, okay, but that's not who you are. Don't get angry. Don't, you're going to go ahead and this is how you're going to react. And you kind of teach him how to react in a worldly situation. And hey, we're going to pray for you. Hey, yeah, he was a little bit mean. Let's go ahead and pray that his heart softens up a little bit, right? And he's going to choose better words the next time. But I want you to be the example. I don't want you to engage. I want you to be better. I want you. And that's how we kind of just roll, and it's gotten us pretty far so far. It doesn't mean it doesn't, I haven't gotten anybody say, hey, I didn't appreciate you saying that you prayed for me to get better. That's never happened. But they're thankful. They're thankful. And I've just learned, don't be ashamed of who you are. Don't be ashamed. And I think that our culture is changing a little bit, right? It used to be a little bit of a reserve thing, and now it's not. At least I feel like it's not for me.
Good stuff. So I greatly appreciate that. So we're going to get ready to wrap this episode up.
Let me share one thing.
Go ahead. Hey, so that's why I queued you up. I threw the alley. Now you had to oop it, Pastor Troy. Let's go, sir.
No, I just want to encourage anybody that's listening that is a parent to include their kid start young, but including the kids in making those decisions when it comes, because again, that's what you're trying to develop, right? It's like when you're trying to decide, are we going to go to church, or are you going to go to youth camp, or are you going to go to your game, and to have those kind of conversations because one, it can awaken you as a parent to where your child is spiritually, right? What do they value? You might think they value one thing because they mind, but do they really value it given a choice? And it's a great opportunity to talk about, well, why should we do that? And, I'm not saying it's an easy conversation. I'm not saying you might not have to step in and say, no, here's what we are going to do. There are times for that as well. But I think, as you were talking about, it's really important because again, the ultimate goal is to help them to be able to make decisions based on their values.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a great opportunity because there's a war. I like both of these. And how many times in life does that happen, right? Fall in love with the wrong person. Do we continue to date? Do we not continue to date? Life is filled. I just would encourage any parent, don't waste the opportunity to have those conversations to help and start early. Because if you wait too long, right, and they are surrounded by the fear of missing out or not making the all-star team or whatever, makes it more difficult if you haven't kind of walked along the way and say, well, how important is it that you make the all-star team? Because again, those are the real decisions. Do I take the overtime or do I not take the overtime? If I take the overtime, maybe I don't get to go to my kid's ball game, or maybe I miss church, or maybe I don't go to my kid, right? But if I do take it, we're going to have enough money to go on vacation this summer. There's not a evil decision, that there's a value decision. What do I value the most? Not what do I say, but what do I actually value the most? Because for me as a pastor, and I hate to keep preaching on this, but that's the part for me that is the most painful. It's not that people just aren't at church, right? I wish they were, because I believe in what God's house can add value, but it's the greater, it's what we teach the next generation without realizing that we're teaching them. We say we value this, but it's not what we value, right? We value it when there's nothing else in the way of it. And And then you do see, young people then struggle at college or struggle when they first get married or, struggle with their own. And it's a real thing. And as Christ followers and folks who have walked through it, I think it's important to partner, not, you don't want people to feel judged. You want them to feel supported in the reality of understanding how difficult it is to walk down that path, but don't let the difficulty be your excuse to not deal with it. So I really include your kids in those conversations early, because they know a lot more than you think they do.
Oh man. So I think that all of us would agree with that. And so Ali, thank you for your time. Melissa, thank you. Pastor Troy, thank you for being the man, the athlete that you are. So, greatly.
We're gonna go compete. So
Yeah, we have to.
Michelle can come too.
No. So hold on. Here's my question. What are we competing in?
Badminton.
Okay.
I was gonna say pickleball, but
No, sir. So limited movement. Okay.
See, that's wisdom. With age comes wisdom.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for hanging out with us here on this episode of the Troy Gramling Podcast. Once again, thank you to Ali, thank you to Melissa, and thank you, Pastor Troy. This is only the beginning of the conversation. We're going to ask you to jump in the comment section. Let us know your thoughts, your feelings, your opinions, and this is where Pastor Troy will be responding and commenting to each of you. So we love you. God loves you. There's nothing you can do about it. We'll see you here on the next episode of the Troy Gramling Podcast. Take care.
And we can sit and do nothing with it and be guilty of the crime of omission, or we can leverage it to make kingdom difference.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching today's episode. And if you haven't, be sure and subscribe. And if you enjoyed what we talked about today, you're going to like this one or this one even better.